All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's October 21st, 2020. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator. That means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your teams and then showing them the rope. If that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel, as well as follow up with an email that you can share with your team. So with that said, let's kick it off. Here are some of the announcements I'd like to cover today. One of the big ones, I would love to go into further detail, but I haven't had a chance to dig deeper into it. Maybe somebody on the call has, and that is the announcement of Waypoint by HashiCorp, which is basically a lightweight pass that you can self-host, and my guess is HashiCorp is positioning themselves to host this in the near term. What I think is really interesting about it is that they've done a few things that we did ourselves this year, which was work on a kind of Heroku-like workflow. They identified what was really nice with Heroku and thought, how can we generalize that so you can define your own steps, your own build packs, and have a very straightforward way to package your artifacts and then deliver those artifacts through deployment. What's interesting is Mumoshu, who is a regular contributor to Helmfile and gosh, a half dozen other open source projects. He has already written a Waypoint plugin for Helmfile as a, you could say, a way to get his hands dirty and figure out like what this is. And I thought, everyone was kind of scratching their head a little bit on what is Waypoint when it was announced. I think it was a little bit ambiguous. Is it a task runner? Is it just like a make replacement? What is it? And it's much less that. And it's much more just a way of organizing your deployments. I don't think it's mutually exclusive with, if you're using Argo CD, for example. The idea is that this is just a way of bundling those artifacts. And then you can, Argo would be like a plugin for Waypoint. So this is one layer above that. So in his example here, he shows how once you have enabled the Helmfile plugin for Waypoint, you can then pass the parameters to Helmfile the way you would ordinarily do. And you don't have to use a here doc, of course. You can use the YAML encode methods and things like that. Has anybody had a chance to kick the tires yet on Waypoint?
I tried it on Saturday, so I spent like 1 hour reading documentation completely. Actually, was following, as you said, trying to figure out what is it actually in first place. And my understanding from the conference itself was one thing, and then when I read documentation was totally different things. And then when I tried to run examples, they failed.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah, that was a whole like process. So I spent 2 hours, and then I figured out that right now there is no way to interact with existing tool set, which we've been using for quite a long time, Packer and Terraform.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like, I really want to figure out how in all existing tool set it can be plugged in. I understand like you can do build and deploy and release, well, but I already have, I don't know, thousands of lines of whatever tools I've been using.
No, that's true. And that's a really good point. And I think that the target demographic is probably not people who have something that's working today. Inevitably, when these revolutionary new tools come in, it's like, oh, how do I squeeze this in? Do we need to squeeze it in? We have something that works today. Do we replace it? But in Cloud Posse, we've been investing heavily in something very similar in terms of the task runner, which is variant 2 by Bimoshu. But it turns out that I think there's still, I think I can still see how this fits into how we do things, but it is very opinionated, and it's something that anybody who's been doing this for a while has a solution for, and it might not be easy to rip it out. So for like Terragram, I think that would be a plugin. For Packer, I think that would be a plugin. And then how you stitch those things together would be expressed through these different.
Well, I couldn't find really a place where I can easily, let's say, call shell script. There is an exec plugin, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to be doing.
No. So what was the exec plugin doing?
I don't remember right now, but it was not for calling shell scripts.
Okay, because it sounded because the Helmfile plugin here was based actually on the exec provider that he repurposed for his purpose. But who knows? Maybe. Yeah, I'd be surprised. That's interesting. Okay.
Well,
has anybody else?
There are plugins, and also there is built-in feature called exec. I'm not sure which one is what.
Yeah. But, Eric, this is Sheldon. I got a response back from I think it was Mitchell when he first announced it. It was pretty cool. And
I saw your post there. I liked it, I think.
Cool. So I actually did ask for, I guess, context for others. I asked, does this cross over into the realm, with like, I've been experimenting with the task file runner that you guys mentioned. Absolutely pretty awesome. I use invoke build. You got make, you got variant 2, you got a lot of like dev-oriented stuff that wraps up this. And at least the initial reaction that he had from there was that they're not really at this time looking to scope this into the dev space where you have like the local utility. So maybe that's where my misunderstanding, as I've tried to figure out where it fits in my scope, I don't see the point yet. And just like you described, if somebody already has a tool, it's going to be hard to fit it exactly as is.
Yeah. I really like that you brought that up again. I remember seeing that as well. So yeah, basically how to leverage this as part of your local development workflow, as well as your like production and release workflow, isn't in scope of the project at this time. However, I think that's one of those hard, I don't know. I mean, everyone has a very different local development workflow. That's one of those things that's really hard to generalize also when you want to take things to production. And I guess, so I get why they did it. I kind of would be eager to see, HashiCorp try and solve this very hard thing. How do you create a simple local developer experience, but also translate that for production deployments?
Yeah, I was trying to get it up and running locally, and I couldn't find any way to parameterize things as well. So there are no concepts of variables, environment variables. So everything is pretty much hard-coded.
Well, so I guess that's in an artifact of some kind then, right?
No, I mean in the pipeline inside of config file.
Yeah.
So that's why in documentation they say that you may have multiple steps or multiple types of deployment, or multiple types of releasing, or something like that. I don't remember exactly the definition, but I was really expecting to see some sort of, let's say, environment match, and if environment equal dev, then do this. Some sort. I understand that it's not like this in HCL, but this was extremely static.
Yeah. Be interesting to see a demo of how HashiCorp deploys Terraform Cloud with Waypoint.
Well, they built an AMI.
Yeah. So,
cool. I did have a question regarding that when you mentioned HCL. Maybe it's best for the end, but the announcement with HCL described Packer, and they had a call. I didn't get to attend it, and but it was about HCL2 for Packer. And I went to their website, and it's still considered beta or not for use in production, at least in the documentation. So I wanted to ask if anybody heard an update on that, or know if, or see if you have moved to HCL2 for your Packer workflow.
I know we looked into this back in March, April timeframe for something we were working on, and we realized, I don't remember what the details were. We realized there was a lot of functionality that hadn't yet been ported into the HCL version of the Packer config format. I don't know if that's still the case, and I didn't see the announcement that at HashiCorp. So,
and
yeah, exactly.
Last thing about Waypoint, which I want to get your opinion, guys, is do you actually see Waypoint as any like continuation of existing tool set by HashiCorp? Like they all have previous tools which people used, and they will fit pretty well in, let's say, operational, like Vault, Console, and Nomad. And for me, it seems that Waypoint is just trying to like grab audience without exact solution. So it's like, we know your problems, and here is something what we are gonna to come up with.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, people have asked, okay, so you have all these discrete tools. How do I stitch it all together? And I mean, this has been a lot of what Cloud Posse is focused on for our customers, is tying these tools together in some way in an opinionated fashion. So it's going to be really interesting to see what HashiCorp comes out with. Obviously, it's going to be much like the AWS ecosystem of tools, work really well with them. I'm guessing that's going to be true with the HashiCorp system and the tight integration with Vault, with Nomad, with Console, all that stuff, encouraging tighter usage of those tools. So is it premature? Totally. But I guess they're trying to solicit some excitement. There was also, what is it, Otto, or what was the tool that preceded?
Otto.
Yeah, and that seems like that kind of fell on deaf ears, or it was abandoned, and they've archived that project now. And then this is that project totally re-envisioned, a total rewrite. So we'll see if they do a better if they do a better job launching it now, that they have a whole lot more attention and a larger community that gets excited about their tools. But I think everyone here is looking for like, hey, we need some guidance from you guys, because we keep on building these tools around your tools, and then you decide to go another way. So.
Yeah, but also there is very big competition in all of these areas already. So they obviously don't want to say, hey guys, we stick with this operational tool, so go and use Pulumi for that.
Yeah, no, they don't. There's a lot of competition there. I don't know how serious of a threat yet Pulumi is, but but I guess so. Their answer a little bit to that was, what was it? AWS TF, which, or no, CDK-TF.
CDK-TF.
Got that? Yeah, got that wrong. Which actually doesn't is not in any way required. Would work with GKE or any other provider you use with Terraform. But yeah. I'd very much like to see the concept that TerraGrunt has of like remote root modules, where you can init from module become a mainstream feature of Terraform. I think.
Well, you have solution for that already, right? Long time ago.
We don't use it anymore because it doesn't work well, because they broke functionality in 0.13.
Well, and this functionality is not restored still.
Yeah.
There are a few open issues. So yeah.
Was it a problem in TerraGrunt as well, or did they re-implemented it another way?
Well, no, in TerraGrunt it's the same. I mean, it works well, but there were many times when I wanted to jump off from TerraGrunt, and well, the only option which I can do is similar to what you made in TFN project long time ago.
Yeah,
which is
one of the things that they've improved. I think they've improved one thing now, which was the ability. Not all Terraform commands supported a directory or state file path, and I think in 0.13 they fixed that. but that might we kind of walked away. What I learned from that was don't try and do anything that Terraform doesn't recommend in their documentation as a way. So it felt like we were hacking around some internal thing that they don't recommend for that.
Speaking about forward compatibility, things which which will be announced in even 0.15 are pretty interesting. Is that if you rely on some internal APIs of Terraform, be ready that they will be deprecated.
Like
you don't even have access to that.
So we're talking like in providers that have been written that are using Terraform internals, or
this is specifically, like, I don't have too much details right now, but I talked to Kazuma, who is creator of TF-Lint, and he said that there are some backward or forward incompatible changes in upcoming versions of Terraform. I mean, which means that he cannot provide enough insights for the Terraform code because he doesn't have access to the API internal. And yeah, there is an open issue in Terraform repository, and developers just say that, yeah, but that's live. You don't have access to that one, which is a little bit strange, but that's how it is.
And I wonder what that does to some of the vendors creating products around linting Terraform. If that has an impact on Chekhov, I don't know, for example, then, or.
Well, this is actually a very big problem, I can tell you, because I'm one of these vendors who is interested in proper tooling around Terraform. And so far, it was not very straightforward. For example, there is significant lack of tooling related to parsing and understanding structure of HCL, as well as generating HCL. Like, there is some tooling which you can use, like HCL Reader or HCL Writer, but it's very, very basic. And the reason for that is that
it's published as a standalone library, no?
this library doesn't exist, I think, anymore, because it's now part of HCL. I mean, this is used inside of Terraform.
Archive.
Yeah, so it is used inside of Terraform. But the biggest challenge here is that things related to Chekhov, as well as other Python libraries, is that it's pretty much impossible to parse full HCL syntax the way how people write it. Specifically, some features like override inside of Terraform. I honestly have never met people who use it. Yeah. But there are people who use it, unfortunately.
We've used it on very scarce occasions, but yes, it's very infrequently used. Yeah, that's a good point. So then, and then parsing all those exceptions and
Yeah, so there is not enough tooling which Terraform as a library can give you.
What is HCL edit doing, for example?
I guess they just use HCL Reader.
Okay.
Well, they actually do writing, but I don't know how they do this. It's most likely they support maybe subset of it.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know how they can do this. It's quite complicated.
So the other exciting announcement here has been that 0.14 is already hit beta 1. And this is basically an about face by HashiCorp to do releases more frequently. So we don't have these big bang releases that are tremendously painful. I guess anything that's painful, do more of it is the rule to live by. And the 0.14 comes with a few cool things, which is this, what I think is most interesting is like the sensitive input variables. So you don't need to use tfmask, which is a CLI tool that Cloud Posse wrote. You can mark a variable as sensitive. It will still persist in the state in clear text. However, anytime Terraform goes to init it, it'll be redacted, hopefully. The other one would be the provider lock file. Now, they want to extend this to work with external modules as well, but right now it's only providers. And the idea here is that we can be a little bit looser on the version pinning, but then lock what we actually deploy and commit that lock file to source control. The other thing
I actually talked to them about this issue right now on emails, and there is some problem related with the way how we put versions inside of modules. For example, if we have a root module which has its own constraint, and then we have submodules which also has maybe the same constraint. Currently, there is probably a bug, or at least I couldn't get Terraform 0.14 to work with my cases. This means that now Terraform lock is actually not doing what it's supposed to be doing, because it just combined this constraint. It does not find the one. It just combined them into one, and it doesn't work.
So this one is superseding.
Yeah, it doesn't supersede. It just put them one after another after comma, and this makes Terraform init unhappy. So yeah, we have this on emails back and forth. So we'll see. Maybe we'll figure out how to do this now.
So I think it's an exciting turn, but yeah, it seems like with the other things, it's going to be pretty rough initially and maybe not that practical. I look forward to seeing, though, stricter pinning in the root modules made easier, so we can improve that workflow. And then there's one other thing I wanted to point out. There's this here. I think it's in my notes. Oh yeah, so upgrading to 0.14 is going to be a little different now than like 0.13 and 0.12. First of all, make sure you're going to want to have made sure you upgraded sequentially first from 0.12 to 13 before you go to 14, because they're deprecating the upgrade command, subcommand of the Terraform CLI. So you'll lose that. Also, there's not going to be backward compatibility on reading the state file in 14 to read 0.12 states. So you definitely want to first upgrade to 13 and finish that and roll that out everywhere. All right. Any questions on those announcements?
Yeah, I have comment about sensitive. As you say, it will be still present in state, but if you use it inside of output, then you cannot access this Terraform state from outside. So if you actually marked something as sensitive, let's say variable is sensitive, then you put it into output, make output sensitive as well, then nobody can reach this Terraform state file from outside.
Is that?
I think it's quite cool, but you just have to remember about that.
Do you mean there is like a cubby hole? So when it's used once, it just dies and you can't access it. So it's generated, output it, and then that's it, end the story. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, if you mark it as sensitive variable, and then you put output, and then value is also this variable, or any interpolation using this variable, then this output will not be reachable for anyone outside. So if you want to share Terraform state, which contains good values and bad values, I mean, sensitive, they will not be reachable. Nobody can read them because they're not in state in outputs.
So wait, okay, they are not even persisted in the state file then?
Yes, they're not. They're not inside of Terraform TF state in output section.
Oh, I get it, because it's transitive. Like,
yes.
That's smart. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, that's smart, but this may break some dependencies.
Yeah.
Because you previously relied on some values, and now somebody said that, okay, this is sensitive, and they apply it, and then it's gone, and nobody can actually see this secret password anymore.
Yeah, I think we've used a similar pattern back in the day with like GitHub tokens, where we'd run it manually one time, passing that variable, and then write it to the state, and then subsequent runs would just work. But anyways, it makes sense, and I can see why they want to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What
And-
else? Oh, go on. Go on, Anton.
That's. I'm just checking through my notes, and I have another cool things here related to 0.14, which is called all true, which is new function which is available, which means that it will return true if all elements inside of list are true.
Oh, that's cool.
So if we previously had some crazy expression inside of count, we can now use all true, and it's quite handy.
Yeah, added all true function.
Mm. Mm.
All right, cool. I will share these notes as well. Thanks for pointing that one out. All right, then the one other little mini announcement is we've done a lot of the legwork to finally get us to this point where now our Cloud Posse packages are updating every single night automatically, opening a pull request with a pull request for each package that changes. So here you can see in the recently closed history here that we upgraded CodeFresh automatically to 0.738, GitHub release to 0.9.0. We open up one of these changes and it has all the metadata of that package update. And the tests were automatically kicked off, and then using Mergify, we're automatically merging that pull request. We're automatically approving it, and then I'm automatically merging it once it has approval. So that's working out pretty nicely. The configuration that we're using for Mergify, if you want to take a look at how we did that, is if you go to Cloud Posse packages, and in the GitHub directory, there's a Mergify config here. I'll share that in the channel. And all the conditions are and, not or. So all these need to be true. So when the Alpine package succeeds, the Debian package succeeds, the Docker image build succeeds, we're merging to master and the author's Cloud Posse bot, and it's an auto update branch, then we will automatically approve it with a message. And then once it's been approved and all these conditions are satisfied, then we actually do a squash merge and release it. So that's distributed out to our package repository host, hosted by Cloudsmith. That's cloudsmith.io. And really digging this flow. So one of the next things that we'll be working on is our RPM packages. So we support Debian, RPM, and Alpine packages for all the cloud tools that we rely on. And what's also rad is now that means that you can pretty much rely on that as soon as the origin GitHub repository has a new release and a package available, that our packages should have it. There's a couple exceptions. Some of our version pinned packages like these, we are temporarily not automatically updating them, but that's just a shortcoming of our process, and I'm going to be fixing that. So these are also updated. The corresponding kubectl command will always be the latest version. Cool. Any questions on how we're doing automatic auto approvals, automatic merging, automatic updates? All right. So let's see, any questions, recent questions in the Office Hours channel for today? I'm looking over here and don't see any new ones, other than Andrew Roth was asking, questions or thoughts on the Waypoint project, which we kind of covered at the beginning of the call. All right, so one of the first questions, kind of natural segue into last thing that was asked, was Andrew Roth asked, now this was frankly a few weeks ago or more, if anybody's using a bot to do automatic merging. And well, yes, now we are. It's taken us a long time to get there. So if you take a look, Andrew, at Mergify, that's what we're using. It can get pretty pricey if you are doing it on private repos, but for open source, it's a brain dead simple solution to go for it. So the first thing we tried when doing automatic merging was using GitHub Actions. And it proved to be very complicated to use GitHub Actions to do automatic merging. And the reason is that GitHub has a lot of checks and balances in place to ensure you don't create like PRs, or you don't create webhook storms in GitHub Actions where one pull request then triggers this event that triggers that event that creates a cycle, and now you just explode the GitHub cloud. So when you have GitHub Actions that cut releases, and then after that release, you maybe want to do a Docker build, that's actually kind of tricky. You have to make sure you're using different tokens for those events, different personal access tokens. And much the same thing, when you want to do automatic merging, you want to wait until the checks pass, but sometimes you don't know how many checks there are to know when is it passed. So using Mergify just made a lot more sense in the end for this.
So if you have a, relatively lower risk project, you can just tell Mergify, if all the checks pass, go ahead and merge it. Like, is that what?
It supports a really rich system of checks. These are all the attributes you can check. You can check the assignee, who approved it, or the number of people that approved it. You can do regexes on all of these things, or straight matches. You can compare the branches, content of the body. You can ensure that there are no conflicts. Check what only trigger when certain certain files that were modified. So what we did were two things. So one was that
you're only using it for your Linux packages right now.
Yeah, this was like the test bed to get it working. And let me be honest that I had a lot of failed PRs in doing this. We opened up a lot of bad PRs and merged a lot of bad PRs at first because I didn't have all the checks right. One of the things we did was we updated code owners. So when you modify the Mergify configuration, Cloud Posse admins have to sign off on it. So that means you can't, some rogue person can't change how we merge things. But then we also had to add Mergify as one of the approved reviewers for what we're doing. So yeah, so then we had, you saw, I don't know if you saw earlier, I showed the config. We have a lot of constraints put in this file. So it's pretty narrow who can do it. One of the most narrow things we have here is just it has to originate from our bot user. And then it has to originate from a branch of a special convention.
Got it. Yeah, it's cool. I've been doing a bunch of work with code owners for my company's open source org now. It's great. We set up I set up we have like 4 Terraform modules, and I set up one pipeline in CodeFresh that covers all 4 of them. And it's SAIC-OSS.
Yeah.
And so I made a team called like compliance, and said the compliance team is the code owner of the pre-commit config file, the task file, and the .github folder. And that way, the one pipeline can just run a Go task, but the Go task can have anything you want in it. So I can say Go task validate, or I can say task validate. And then whatever validations we want to do for that one project is it can do, and then we're controlling that still by having the compliance team be the code owner of the task file. So anyone can make a change to the task file and put a PR in, but the compliance team has to check off on it. So I really liked that, and it's something we never were able to get anywhere even close to in GitLab.
Yeah. And I think you did that the right way. I think that's a great way to organize it and have that compliance team responsible for signing off on those changes for those specific files.
One thing I want to point out, because it trips a lot of people up, and it tripped us up here in the code owners file that Eric showed you. Unlike a lot of configuration files where the first match wins, code owners, the last match wins. So any global entry needs to be the first entry in the list. Otherwise, all the other entries don't do anything.
Yeah.
So it looks like I need to fix something there then?
Yes.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. All right, we'll make sure to get that. So what Jeremy's saying here is that this rule here now supersedes this rule here.
Correct.
Oops. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on code owners or related to that? Mergify or automatic merging?
Something I wasn't sure about and learned and verified was that, like, let's say you set your branch protection to require one approval.
Yeah.
Right. But a file has a code owner for 3 different people or 3 different teams or whatever. It's like, I want the compliance team to be the code owner of that. I also want, the engineering team to be the code owner of that. Even though the branch protection is only one review, it's okay, when one review is made and it's approved, then you can merge. If there's 3 code owners, you need 3 reviews from all from each of the 3. You need one from each of the 3 code owners.
That's true.
And I thought that was great too.
Yeah. That is good. I feel like I ran into an issue related to this though with Atlantis. It was not, I feel like it was not able to identify the mergeability under these situations, or like, yeah, no, yeah. So this was the problem. If you require in Atlantis, because I wanted to do what you're doing also with Atlantis, and it wouldn't work because all Atlantis does is check for mergeability. And if you require a plan and apply before merging, then it's never mergeable. So then the mergeability tests are never sufficient from a permissions perspective. So you have to loosen that requirement. Just a note, if you're trying to use code.
Does Atlantis supports like slash actions, don't they? Comment.
Yeah, it supports slash commands, but you wanna have ACLs together with that, right? So you want to be able to require certain teams only to be able to do it, which Pepe has brought to life RPR for that from a year or so or 2 ago. And any update on that, Pepe? Have they merged that PR yet?
No, it has been like 20 days. And I even messaged directly the maintainer, and he hasn't replied. He's not even active in the Slack, Atlantis Slack. So I don't know what's going on.
Ooh, that's really
there's a bunch of PRs actually waiting. And so I don't know if this is a time where, new contributors or maintainers are going to be asked for. I hope so, to be honest, but I don't know.
Be a community health issue then.
Yeah.
So we're talking about run Atlantis, and this is what a lot of us got our start with in using GitOps, and we've pulled back on it, but still used by probably hundreds of people out there. So 18 open PRs. Let's see. Well, merged as recently as 2 weeks ago, so still have stuff happening. But yeah, if I guess while we're here, let's give your PR a promotion here. be great if other people would like to see Teams support for restricting plan and apply. Then please vote on this PR. This one, this is the one. This is the
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So if everyone can go upvote this one for Pepe, that I'm sure he'd appreciate it, and others.
And I'm working on. When I say I'm working on, I'm not a developer. I'm trying to understand Atlantis code, source code, on the multiple server feature, so that two Atlantis servers are aware of each other.
Yeah.
So you can have, a server per account or per environment if you wanted to.
So I think it was, yeah, which I think is getting more and more important for people. And the other one, I think it was, I don't know if it was Anton who mentioned it, but that there's a /plan and /apply endpoints in this PR. I think that seems pretty cool. So if you want to try,
Yeah, exactly.
Atlantis with your other pipelines, this is now a possibility if that PR ever gets merged, which it doesn't look like it will, since that's going back to April and now it's breaking. That has conflicts. So not looking too positive here. All right, so let's see what other questions we had here from the past. How to optimize test infrastructure. So I don't believe the person who originally asked this is probably on the call today, but I thought it was kind of interesting just to bring it up, since I know we're a lot of developers on the call. And we do a lot of testing. So Nitin was talking about, like, we want to run automatic checks on our EKS module, but every single time we bring up an EKS cluster, and that's maybe costly. And he's wondering, like, can we just use local stack for that, or somebody else maybe suggested using local stack as a possibility. But even that, and I know Zach has played with this as well. It's just that, you're trading one cost for another, and that one cost is kind of Amazon's predictable pay per minute billing versus the cost of a developer to figure out how to get local stack to work. And then, like, a lot of the stuff that you maybe ultimately want to be able to test using local stack, you anyways need to pay local stack for, and your mileage may vary. I think that trying to optimize it by not running the tests on Amazon is not worth the time and effort to do that, and instead look at ways of reducing the cost of running on Amazon itself, either through the savings plans, making sure you're nuking your account every single night. So Cloud Posse, that's what we do for our, so we have our testing.cloudposse.com repo. And in past office hours, we've gone into more detail on this, so I'm not going to cover it right now. But if you go in here and you look, here's like our nuke configuration, and then we run this every single night with GitHub Actions to nuke the testing account. And since it's a testing account, we don't mind putting those credentials in GitHub secrets so that we can run it as part of this. This account is not used for anything else other than testing. You can, and lastly, you can set budgets, I believe, on the AWS account, so that, and notifications, so if you're going over.
I noticed all of your repos have issue templates and pull request template. Do you change those based on which repo it is, or are they all just carbon copies of each other? Could they go into the org level .github repo?
Yeah, so I think if we were starting all the way over from scratch, I would maybe take a little bit of a different approach using Cookie Cutter or something like that. But what we have is, if you go to our Cloud Posse build harness in the templates folder, this is the origin of all of our templates that we use for the repositories. And then we have a simple make-based, I'll show the Makefile that helps manage these templates in a second. So in here, we have our GitHub health files. So here you can see the various markdown configs for that. And then the pull request template here. This is just a straight template. There's no more templating on our template. So to answer your question, Andy, we just copy those directly over. the way that works in our build harness is we have in our modules, we have a GitHub folder here. So under this makefile, we have a very simple makefile. So here we register all of our templates. So the code owners file, the pull request, and this. And then here we have our makefile target that updates those if the file is older than the one in the build harness. So I'll link that as well. This works well since we have really good consistency across all of our repos. I would still like to be able to do more conditional type of pull request templates, but diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Related.
I kind of like the. I mean, it's nice to just have the what, why references. You know, what I ended up doing was I just put that what, why references as the pull request template inside that .github repo. So every single repo in my org has the same pull request template, and then I could overwrite it if I need to. But
yeah, so the kind of funny thing is, you know, we've been rolling this out for the past year or two, and then suddenly, then I don't know, a few months ago, whatever, I saw this .github repo. I think I was stalking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about it in. You discovered it in an office hours call or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I really wish that worked with like the .github. So what Andrew's talking about is this: you can have a .github repository in your organization, and this is where you centralize things like your health files. So we don't have our health files centralized here, partially because we have our own system for it, and partially because in the end it didn't quite work as much as I would love it. I would love if I could put like global workflows in my GitHub .github repository for the Cloud Posse organization, and now automatically every one of our repositories could use our standard linter, but it does not work that way. So what happens is when you register workflows here, you can do some click ops through the GitHub UI, and it will automatically open a PR with that workflow in your repository, but it provides nothing to streamline the software development lifecycle of those workflow files. So you still have to do that. So from my opinion, you need to have something like the Cloud Posse build harness or the .github directory that you instrument with other things.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're working on is, so you saw what we did with Mergify to automatically update our packages. We're going to do that with READMEs. So we can automatically update the READMEs in every repository and automatically merge those READMEs in every repository. So stuff like that is pretty low risk and very tedious. And it looks like the power outlet here, they have shut off. So I got maybe 5 minutes left for office hours. And let's see here, I've used 3 gigs on my Wi-Fi, my MiFi. Oh, T-Mobile or Google Fi is pretty awesome. All right, let's see. We covered that automation of this. Related, there was another question. I don't know who asked it. Was it you and Andrew as well? Has anybody tried running GitHub Action private runners to use aws-nuke? And I believe Matt Gowie wrote something to do this on ECS, but that's just running aws-nuke as a scheduled job on ECS, I think. We have not tried running private GitHub runners with this solution yet. That said, Jeremy, who was just spoke up a little while ago, he's working on deploying Summer Wind Actions Runner. So this is how you can run GitHub Actions on Kubernetes with auto-scaling capabilities for your runners. Also managed by Mumoshu.
Not quite ready for production.
No. What are some of the rough edges you're?
No Helmfile.
Oh, okay.
Chart. No configure. Can't really be configured. For example, I mean, without forking the project, you can't choose the namespace it gets deployed into. It is deploying pods based on it has a custom resource definition of a runner deployment or a runner replica set, which and a controller, and the controller directly deploys pods based on those resources, which is problematic. For example, when you want to use an EKS service account, because EKS, if you will modify the pod spec to add the service account tokens, and the controller will see that that's not the pod spec it had in mind and kill it and redeploy it.
Oh.
Also, because it's not deploying an actual deployment, then it doesn't show up in Grafana as a deployment or a workload. Lots of little things like that. And as for the big things, I still haven't gotten it to run anything. Not that I've tried and failed, I just haven't gotten that far.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So what you brought up there with the service accounts things, I remember that was David Carlson joined us probably a month. What was this? This was, over a month ago, and brought up this project here. Did you see that project, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think that was abandoned or something.
Oh, it was.
I don't know. I looked at it and it was like, well, we're not using that. I don't remember the exact reason, but it was not any better. There is apparently a workaround that works with Summerwind, which involves essentially duplicating the configuration that AWS would install by automatically. If you duplicate it manually, then the pod spec matches. So it looks like that's going to work. We had the same problem, and one of the reasons I'm familiar with it is we had the same problem with the Jenkins operator. And they, although the Jenkins operator appears to also have been somewhat abandoned, they did at the time come to the same conclusion that I came to and have passed along to Summerwind, which is that the controller should be deploying deployments, not pods.
I have kind of an interesting question that you may or may not want to answer, and if you don't, that's totally fine. You guys are, you guys make money from consulting, right? That's and so does my company. We're just a lot bigger and we do it for the government. How much time you guys spend doing billable work versus improving tools and processes and, whatever else that isn't billable to anybody?
Yeah. I mean, I have that pretty well quantified at Cloud Posse, and I mean, I don't have the hour amount, but it's in excess, and we're a relatively small company, so we're spending in excess of like $10,000 a month on maintaining and updating this stuff, which is not directly billable to customers. But then the benefit we have over maybe some other companies, because this stuff is open source, when we start a new engagement, we try and update everything as part of that new rollout. So the things that are actively used and actively reused are continuously updated and kept up to date. And then of course we get a lot of the pull request submissions as well, but pull request submissions are not free. They require reviews. They require a lot of help from folks as yourself, Andrew, and Pepe, and Matt Gowie, and all of these guys.
Yeah,
from our community.
I've had to I've had to fight tooth and nail to be allowed to work 10% of my time
Oh,
on overhead.
yeah. Yeah.
So I was wondering what kind of time you guys spend.
Well, just tell your boss, that Google spends 20% of their time on overhead. So
Exactly, right? Yeah.
So I think that the companies grossly underestimate.
And it's just me. Like everyone else, 1%, 99% billable work is what the metric is that everyone's required to meet.
And confirm.
Billable. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty high in terms of the overall team on billable, but there's still a definite high cost to the company on maintaining it. It's an interesting question. One of the things that I'm just realizing more and more is that companies underestimate the amount of time and effort it takes to own and operate your infrastructure moving forward. The continuous reinvestment in keeping software up to date, the perpetual package breakage and deprecations going on that mean that the solutions you came up with 6 months ago or a year ago are no longer viable solutions and you have to redo it. So there is definitely some value to paying a little bit of an amortized premium at using SaaS, which bakes that into what you're paying them. Right? You don't have to worry about those platform updates continuously happening. That's, I guess, why SaaS is not cheap. All right, we are about out of time, and my laptop is almost out of juice, so I think I'm going to take this opportunity to wrap things up for today. We'll pick up on the questions and this discussion next week on our office hours then. In the meantime, everyone, stay healthy. I appreciate the contributions you guys continuously are giving to us. If anybody would like to book a time with a member of Cloud Posse or myself, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.